edition of the Critical Mass Radio Show and podcast. I'm guest host Rick Girard, and this is podcast episode number 1109. Our guest today is Brian Montes. If you would like to learn more about the radio show and podcast or our CEO peer groups, visit the company's website at criticalmassforbusiness.com. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Brian Montes. He is the president of Scaleocity Works. By working with matters of critical importance and developing impactful solutions, Scaleocity Works helps empower executives to become employers of choice and greatness. Brian joins us to give us insight into his global experience and how to build efficient and productive enterprises. Brian, welcome to the show today.
Rick, thank you very much. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. So let's start with you sharing an interesting story from your professional path to today.
Sure. You know, we all have stories in our lives and defining moments that sort of kind of guide where we go and where we've been. And so, throughout my career of doing business in over 12 different countries, I've got a lot of stories to share, but I'm going to pick one today that really resonates. My last corporate job, I went from working for a Fortune 500 company that moved at the pace of molasses to working for a single entrepreneur, founder of a company, and hard-charging, retired Marine ex-sniper.
Ooh, that must have been fun.
It was a lot of fun. Learned a lot from him. And so joined his company. I was thrilled when he offered me the job because I was aligned with his vision and his values. And joined the company. It was about 65 million in size, and it was growing very quickly. And in just a few short years, we grew it to 85 million.
Nice.
And so things were moving along fast. And then all of a sudden, the wheels started coming off the bus. So what do I mean by that? Well, at that point, we were growing, and we were not implementing the right systems to support that growth. And then he started spending money on other businesses to try and diversify. And so when that started happening, then the crash of 2008 hit, and then we never recovered from that slump. 2010 hits, our balance sheet is unhealthy, we're not recovering. And he got to a point where he wasn't listening to advice, he wasn't taking feedback, he had no board to guide him. And it really just became a very bad situation where he wanted to retain control over everything. And that really was the lesson that I got out of this whole situation.
Wow.
And the painful part of it was having to shut down a company that had 350 employees. 350 people lost their jobs. And we shut that company down.
In one fell swoop.
We ended up having to shut that company down. And so that whole life lesson of trying to retain too much control can backfire on you because you can still lose everything when you try and retain that much control over something. So that really is just a life lesson that I learned the hard way.
Yeah, I would imagine so. So fast forward to today. Tell us a little bit about your firm.
Yeah, so our firm, Scaleocity Works, from a purely business standpoint, we work with restaurants and hospitality industry, manufacturing and distribution, professional services, nonprofits. We also work with a lot of startups that are getting ready to transition from having independent contractors to having, payroll staff. We also work with international enterprises that want to put a footprint here in the U.S. and, so they're coming over here to put a sales arm in or some type of operation and they need to get established over here. So Those are some of the different industries and companies we work with. And we work for anybody that has just a few employees up to a few hundred. Providing a variety of solutions ranging from payroll all the way through the strategic consulting on the talent management side. But really, our most successful client relationships are the business owners and the C-suite executives that have a growth mindset and they want to work with people that want to tell them what they need to hear, not what they want to hear.
Gotcha.
And they're focused on fighting that status quo.
So, what's your most successful market niche? Or market?
Definitely, our most successful market niche is definitely the restaurant and hospitality industry, and then manufacturing and distribution. They're running parallel right now for us.
Okay, sounds like fun.
It's a lot of fun.
So, what do you enjoy most of it?
The fact that it just never gets boring. Right, there is always something new in each industry, both days, especially in restaurant and hospitality. It's just something new almost every single day, so you're never bored or you're never surprised.
Yeah, I would imagine so. So what makes you guys unique and it makes you stand above your competitors?
That's a great question. So what makes us unique and what we focus on is really becoming and helping organizations become an employer of choice. We didn't coin that. We didn't come up with it. It's been around for a while, but really it really has become a core tenet of our company and a focus. And what we mean by that is, when you take a step back and think about it, we spend about 90,000 hours of our lifetime working. So do you really want to create an environment where Mondays are dreaded, where employees are not held accountable, your team's not held accountable, right? There's so much that has to go into creating a workplace that thrives. So we work with organizations and we help them uncover operational and organizational challenges that ultimately lead to inability to hire, retain talent, grow the team, plan your workforce development. So, whether those issues are related to labor compliance or involving new hires, or that your overtime is doubled and your productivity is down, these are all issues we can help address with your talent and your workforce. So, if I've got time for a quick story, I can tell you one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we've got a multi-location restaurant group that we're working with right now, and about a year ago we engaged them and they engaged us, and the whole point of that was they wanted to become an employer of choice. They didn't realize in the beginning, but they were having a lot of trouble with their systems. They lacked systems, and they also lacked the ability to hire and retain general managers to run their stores.
So what made them want to be an employer of choice?
Because they finally realized it was hitting their bottom line. They were
Got it.
realizing the cost of not having the right leaders in place.
Yeah.
And they were really starting to look at it from a financial perspective.
Sure.
Right. So over the past year, we spent a lot of time building out the KPIs and putting the systems in place. And the result of doing that has now given us the ability to go out and attract and hire competent general managers to run their stores. These are, each of their stores runs at about $3 million a year gross sales.
Nice.
So it's a good size operation
Yeah.
for each standalone store. So you've got to have a competent general manager in there, a good leader to run that store. So we're at a point where general managers in the industry are willing to take a chance and say, I will go work for this restaurant group. It makes sense.
So me being in the recruiting business, the next question is, well, how did you attract that guy?
So it was a variety of
That
factors.
person, I should
Yes,
say. Yeah.
variety of factors. One, we made sure that they had all their costs and accounting figured out. So we brought systems in place to make sure that they understood their finances and that they could really measure all of their cost of goods, their labor, and they had that system in place.
Perfect.
We brought some other tools in as well to help them with their labor compliance. And so we really focused on getting systems in place so that the business had the data that it needed to make good decisions. So that was the first step. Second step was really working with the owners to start to shift the mindset, right? And helping them understand that the days of the attitude of you should just be grateful I gave you a job doesn't work anymore, right? So really,
that still exists though. Sadly,
it does exist
right?
a lot. So we worked on that mindset. And then we started to take a look at the values that the owners wanted to have throughout the organization. We started building internal training programs. So training so that somebody can come in as a host and realize that over time they could work themselves up to a GM through internal training and
So you provided a growth path.
Correct.
Yeah.
We started to create workforce planning and growth paths. And then, of course, we also took a look at what was the right compensation packages and what did we really need to put together to go out to market and say, hey, GM, this is a great opportunity. We're going to compete with the package we're going to offer you, and here's the additional potential down the road. And created that vision of where the organization's going, the additional restaurants that'll open up. So you create that vision when you go out to recruit as well.
That's outstanding. And so what's been the result of that?
So the result of it is that one GM is officially on board. He's in his third month, and things are going very well. We're starting to see those incremental improvements in that store. And we're in the process of recruiting general managers for the rest of the stores, and the pipeline is starting to fill up.
Okay, that's fantastic. So we need to take a quick break. We'll be back in about a minute. We're talking with Brian Montes, the CEO of Scaleocity Works. The Critical Mass Radio Show. I'm guest host Rick Girard. All shows can be heard at any time on iHeartRadio, iTunes, Stitcher, Sprecher.com, and several hundred former guest websites and CEOs that appeared on the show. We started in 2009, and our shows reach hundreds of thousands of listeners through our live stream podcasts and other platforms. We simply type Critical Mass Radio Show into your podcasting software to find our weekly show. I would like to return to our interview with Brian Montes, guest number 1421. Boom, Rick's done a lot of shows.
Yes, he has.
So the next question that I had for you, because you mentioned employer of choice, and so what critical factors are required for a firm to be recognized as an employer of choice and deliver sustainable growth?
That's a great question, and of course there's external ways to measure that, but really first start off by saying that first my employer of choice and your employer of choice could be completely different, right? Because
Totally.
we want different things in our lives and
Yeah.
we've got different paths and outcomes that we want. So there is that variable. However, when we work with organizations, there are some very consistent characteristics that we try and build into that organization to move towards that culture and mentality of employer of choice.
Sure.
One of them is When people are looking for who they're going to work with, they've got to have a belief in that leadership team. So that is critical that gets instilled within the organization, that the person that's coming on board, for them to make that decision, they have to believe in the leadership team, the values that are there. Are they aligned with those values? Can they see a path with that organization? Do they believe that leadership team is making the right direction? So that belief is fundamental in that process.
Sure.
Empowerment and reasonable autonomy. At the end of the day, people don't want to be micromanaged. Most people don't want to be micromanaged.
I would agree with you.
They want some autonomy, right? They want the ability to choose when and how they deliver their work product, and they want to be empowered to make some decisions and have the ability to, make those mistakes accordingly. So empowerment and reasonable autonomy is a key part of it. Career investment is another key component. At the end of the day, we're looking for, it's a two-way street. That team member that comes on board is going to be investing in the organization, and is the organization going to be investing back into that person? Are they going to provide training?
Sure.
Right? We're going to work on skills gaps and do things so that they can promote and climb the ranks and develop themselves professionally? So is there investment from the employer coming aboard?
So really the value that your firm is also bringing is that strategic kind of coaching that you're giving your clients, as well as in creating that brand and helping them, really move forward.
Correct. We'll provide the strategic side to it, and we'll also support them on the implementation, because that's often where it falls short.
Sure. Absolutely. So explain to our audience how, as your firm grows, you are ensuring that it remains nimble in thought and organization.
That's a great question, and there's actually three things that we focus on with that, and one is just the client retention piece.
Sure.
We really pride ourselves on making sure that we don't give our clients a reason to leave, and so we do that through a couple of key ways. We set and manage expectations early on, and we're constantly communicating those expectations so that it's going back and forth both ways.
Sure.
So there's no unexpected surprises. We communicate heavily, and we ask for a lot of feedback from our clients.
Okay.
What's working, what's not working. We want that continuous feedback loop so that we can get better as an organization, and that we all know where we stand. Training and delegation is the other big piece internally. Learning the hard way about trying to retain too much control. I have to be cognizant of making sure that as I start to build my team, that I have the training in place as they come on board. I empower them to do their job, and I let them do that, and I delegate that, and we make sure we do that. And then a culture of autonomy internally is, again, really recognizing that as we expand our team, we need to have those people do what they're hired to do and let them do what they do best.
Yeah, and I would imagine that people are going to be attracted to the fact that you're providing value to your clients above and beyond what other people are doing. I as a recruiter, like to make sure that I ruin that client for anybody else.
There you go.
That's my mission in life.
Set the bar high. Right?
If I do a great job and somebody else comes to him, if I haven't done a great job, then there's the adverse. But author Michael Gerber says CEOs spend most of their time working on their business and not actually in their business and not on their business. Can you share what you spend your time with outside of your business, and how do you learn new skills?
Another great question.
Sure.
And again, I have a few ways I go about doing this. One is join an accountability group. So because that question always comes up, as a business owner, how do you keep yourself accountable?
Yeah.
So joined an accountability group recently with some other professionals, and we meet once a week, and it's just for an hour, and we're all from different businesses, so we help each other.
Is it like a peer group type?
Yeah, it's very similar to a peer group.
Got it.
And we meet and we just talk about a challenge that we're having and try and brainstorm working through it. And the other thing too that hits the pocketbook, because every week we set, okay, I've got to work on this between now and next week. And if you come into that meeting the next week and you haven't done it, you end up shelling out some money. So there's some skin in the game. So I've got my accountability group, which is great. I'm really glad I invested the time in that.
Sure.
And then
is that something you built out, or
no? I was asked to join it by another business associate that I had. So.
Very cool.
And then I am very focused on constantly trying to read and go to conferences. If I can at least read one book a month, there's so much to learn from other professionals.
Oh, yeah.
So recently downloaded the Audible app, because now I spend so much time in my car. I'm like, I'll start listening to books that way. So I definitely do a lot of reading, and I try and attend at least a conference a month, because there's so much to learn by attending different conferences.
You network a lot too, right?
I do network a lot.
Yeah, because I've seen you out and about quite often.
I make the rounds. So, and again, that's a great way to keep learning as well, because we can all learn from each other. And the other key thing that I did in terms of trying to stay focused on working on my business and not always in it is I dropped the task list. And what I do now...
What does that mean?
So what it means is that what I do as I look at my week is I calendar out everything. As such a good example, planning for this show.
Sure.
I actually put it into my time block. I blocked out 2 hours to sit down and really think about, what do I want to communicate to this awesome audience? And so by putting it into my calendar of I'm going to carve out from 2 to 4, whatever it is, and not making it a task list, it's now built into my schedule for the day, which means I'm stopping other stuff. I'm getting that done because it's in my calendar to do, instead of just a task list that sits out there saying, okay, I know I need to do that,
Sure.
but I haven't assigned a time or a date to it, so I'm going to keep pushing it off.
Gotcha.
So those are some of the things I do to really work on the business and keep growing professionally.
Fantastic. So how does somebody get in touch with you and your company if they want to learn more?
Sure. You can get a hold of me by emailing me at brianm@scaleocityworks.com.
Spell Scaleocity Works for me.
SCALEOCITY works.com. Combination of scaling and velocity put together.
I like it.
You can also go to my website at scaleocityworks.com, or you can just pick up the phone and call me, 949-298-7705.
Brian, hey, thank you so much for being a friend of the show and a member of the critical mass business community. I'd like to thank our engineer for today's show, Paul Roberts, our producers, without whom this show would not be possible, Joan Park, Crystal Nunley, and Haley Stern. I would ask you connect with Rick Franzi, not me. Well, you can connect with me as well, but Rick Franzi on LinkedIn. His latest book, Killing Cats Leads to Rats, Mitigating the Unintended Consequences of Business Decisions, is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other booksellers. Until the next show, I hope that all your business decisions move your company in a positive direction.
You have been listening